chance to come in. He said 11 o'clock, so I'm a little bit early. So, if y'all are wondering, who is this broad taking over Afropunk's feed right now? My name is Trace Nelson. I'm the chef and founder of BlackCulinaryHistory.com, and I'm very excited to be bringing you guys the Black Food Folks takeover of the Instagram live feed for Afropunk. We are calling this series The Politics of Food, and I'm going to be talking every Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with the most interesting and brightest minds we have in food, so helping everybody navigate the state of food right now, really the state of the country, state of the world, in this sort of these uncertain times. I am so happy to be representing Black food folks, and my first conversation today is with Devita Davison, who will join me in a minute, but I want to bring in Clay Williams, who is co-founder with Colleen to the Black food folks, so he can talk to you a little bit about them, what they do, and what he hopes this collaboration will be about. Let's see. See if that. Hey, Clay.
Chris, how are you?
Look at this technology. I'm savvy all of a sudden.
This is awesome. This is great. Thank you for doing this. As Tori said, we are from Black Food Folks, which is a fellowship of Black professionals in the food and drink industries. And I think, and we're super excited to be starting the series with Therese hosting, talking about the politics of food. We are on our channel on @BlackFoodFolks. We are doing regular talks with chefs and writers and just generally people in the food space. This afternoon, we're going to have Elle Scott from America's Test Kitchen and Chef Gregory Gourdet coming in at 1 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern, respectively. This week, we're going to have Chef Alexander Smalls doing a book talk about his most recent book release, and that's on Zoom. We'll be doing that. And we have a good number of other conversations that we're going to be doing, including a talk with Yewande Komalafi, with Osai Endelin on Friday. And we have very many other things going. So just follow Black Food Folks and and you'll see what's going on. In the meantime, I'm going to get out of the way and let Devita and Therese have their conversation. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Cheers. Bye, Therese.
Later, Clay. Okay, so our first talk is going to be with the extraordinary Devita Davison. If you have been sort of following the post, letting you guys know who was up first, you may have Googled Devita and come across all manner of just brilliant content that she's offered and shared throughout her career. But I just found her, and I'm going to bring her in so we can get started.
Hey.
Your face always makes me happy. How are you doing, Devita?
Hey, sis. How are you? Let me situate this phone situation. Hey, everybody. Hey, Leanne.
Family is here.
Family is here. Absolutely.
So I want to first say thank you so much for saying yes, because you always seem to me to be the person we look to for just not just wisdom, but sort of sober wisdom and like context. Like you seem to be the person who has been telling us sort of giving us best practices all this time. So it's like this moment where the world seems to be in flux. We really do need, I think, need to take a step back, sort of, and just recalibrate where our priorities are and what we really should be focusing on first. So
Right.
you were the name we thought of first when we said we needed some real talk first conversation. So thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy to be in conversation with you. You know how much I love you, sis. You are our moral compass. I tell you are our North Star. You keep us honest. You keep us grounded. You remind us that even though times are unprecedented, even though times are difficult, even though we are filled with so much pain and trauma, this ain't even our worst days, what we have been through as Black folks. This ain't
Yep.
even the worst of times that we've been through. And if our ancestors could make it through, they've already laid down the blueprint. They've already given us the word, the language, the journey. And if they can make it, we can make it now. And so I am so happy to be in conversation with you, Therese, and I'm just going to offer this up. And that is, if this moment has not radicalized you, if this moment has not politicized you as a food person, then you ought not be doing this work. You don't even need to be doing this work if this moment has not caused you to shift in terms of how you are going to operate and move your Black and brown body throughout this food system. So this is our time.
Yep.
And I am just so happy that anybody who I want to be in conversation with, sis, is you. So I want to give you your roses, because you are a guiding light, Therese, and I love you so much. I'm just happy to be on this call with you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Or do they call it a call? I don't even know what IG Live, girl. I'm so old.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I wanted to start because I feel like so many of us in also in the food space know your name, you see your face, you show up for us, you show up for community, whether it's coming to an event or just adding your wisdom. Your Twitter feed alone is a national treasure. But I think people's reference points for you outside of food may be disparate. And I feel like Detroit becomes this perfect microcosm for like the work that you do. And I also wanted to preface it by, I feel like there's this sort of, we make these icons, these emblems out of certain cities, right? Like we look at Katrina post, we look at New Orleans post Katrina. We think about sort of Oakland as this sort of disparate, radical city that we look to and guide from. And a lot of times, for me, at least from the outside looking in, Detroit becomes like this cautionary tale, and there's so much tragedy, but so much joy, so much like complex mechanism happening in that city that really I think we should be looking to Detroit for how to move, because y'all seem to have always been able to sort of keep priority through crazy times. I mean, y'all, I'm wondering a lot of things, but I guess I want to start with Detroit for you and the work you do at Food Lab.
Yeah. That's such a great starting point, because it gives folks a little bit of a history and a context of where I come from. It's so important during these times that you be grounded, not only in our history as a diaspora, but you understand what your history is, what your motivation is, what brings you to this work. And so I love that you asked me that question about Detroit, because it is Detroit, which is my hometown, the place that I was born and raised, that radicalized me long, long, long ago. And so folks should understand that I identify as a first generation Detroiter. And really what that means is that my mother and father made the migration from the rural South, Alabama, fleeing Jim Crow, fleeing persecution, fleeing lynching, and they came north for a better way of life. What they did not anticipate as so many Black folks did not anticipate, that the same type of isolation and segregation and oppression and discrimination and racism that took place in the South takes place in the North, and it continues to do so. And so I was born and raised in a city that understood that, and I was raised under the leadership of some amazing African Americans, primarily my mayor. The only mayor that I recognize is Mayor Coleman Alexander Young. I'm 50 years old, and so Mayor Young was my mayor all of my life in the city of Detroit. But I was radicalized. People don't understand about the Shrine of the Black Madonna that comes out of Detroit. People don't understand the labor movement that came out of Detroit. So whether it's Walter Reuther and his brother, or it is the UAW, or the first strike that happened at a fast food restaurant, Burger King, happened at a Greyhound bus station in Detroit. And so Detroit has always been this epicenter, in my opinion, of resistance and what it looks like for people to lead with people power. And so with that being said, like, this is what I grew up around. Like, I had no idea that when I was growing up in the city of Detroit that I was living in a version of what I call Wakanda. Like, everything around me was Black. And I'm so glad, because I have never, ever felt, as a Black, dark-skinned woman who navigates her way through these spaces, I've never felt less than. I have never felt that I have had to bend or contort my body, my opinion, my shapes to the white gaze. I've always known that I was beautiful, and that Black people are powerful, and that we have the solutions and the answers. I was raised that way. You understand? Like, so I understand. I understand that, and it is because of Detroit, the home of also Grace Lee Boggs and Jimmy Boggs, that shaped me. And so I feel privileged with that. But the reason why in this moment, I'm so glad that I am coming from the city of Detroit is that Detroit filed for the largest municipal bankruptcy in the United States of America in 2016. And so people should understand that at one point, Detroit, Michigan was the 4th richest city in the country when my parents migrated up in the early 1960s. And during my lifetime, and again, I'm 50 years old, during my lifetime, Detroit went from the 4th richest city in the country to the largest, blackest, poorest metropolitan city. Y'all, this didn't happen overnight. This is not something somebody told me. It went from a city of almost 2 million to a city where the population is right around 700,000, around 685,000 people. And the reason why I bring that up is I want to bring you up some context, folks, that don't let this moment despair you. Let this moment radicalize you, because Black people have seen tough times. And the Black people who I'm speaking to is the Black people, even when white folks and Mitt Romney wrote the op-ed in the New York Times, let Detroit go bankrupt. And even as folks were fleeing Detroit, going to the suburbs, there are some Black people who said, no, I refuse to go. I refuse to give up on Detroit. We're going to stay here. Yeah. And so those Black folks who decided to stay in the city of Detroit are the Black farmers and growers who turn vacant land, who turn blighted property into the largest, baddest epicenter of urban agriculture than the United States of America had ever seen. That's what Detroit is. You understand that? When every single grocery store, major and national grocery store, abandoned Detroit. Detroiters didn't strike grocery stores. We didn't kick them out of our city. They abandoned Detroit. And 700,000 Detroiters. It was our elders who said, let them go. We are going to now introduce a new movement of what we call sovereignty, food sovereignty, and we're going to grow our own food. That's what Detroit did. So what I tell you all, folks, don't let this epidemic cause you to be in despair. Let this moment radicalize you. But here's the thing. And this is where there is this there's this tangential relationship between Detroit and New Orleans. Why we call New Orleans our sister city. It's because New Orleans was reshaped as a result of what we call this. Some people may say it's a natural disaster when they think about Hurricane Katrina. Some folks may think, that it might have been The devastation may have been man-made. I don't know. Did the levees really break, or did somebody break the levees into the Ninth Ward, into lower Black communities? I don't know. That's a conspiracy. I'm gonna let people decide, about that. But Detroit, much like New Orleans, has been reshaped as a city due to what we call calamities, whether that be a hurricane or whether that be a economic filing for bankruptcy. But here's the thing, Therese, that both cities, there's this common denominator, this thread that runs through both cities, and that is the revitalization or the comeback narrative in both cities. It's mighty funny how both cities use food. This is what we need people to understand. In the city of Detroit, I have witnessed, much like New Orleans, coffee shops, specialty grocery stores, farm-to-table restaurants in both cities be used as weapons, as tools for discriminatory development. You cannot untie the conversation that we're about to have about food, and you can't untie it with real estate. They go hand in hand together. And in both cities, food was being used as a weaponization of discriminatory development in both cities. Why? They took what we call the infrastructure that was available. And in many cases, it was artificially depressed properties. And they turned those artificial depressed properties into food spaces. Mm-hmm. They took advantage of inexpensive, poor Black labor, and they used all of that, and they tied it up in this bow that we will begin to perpetuate these collective biases of this redemptive narrative. Like, look at our city coming back. Yep. And the people who told those redemptive stories, those savior stories, tended to be white folks who were then opening up businesses in our community who are now seen as saviors. Do we see some of that happening today? Okay. Well, we got platforms for Gabrielle Hamilton and platforms for David Chang. Yes, I'm calling them out. Platforms for Tom Colicchio, who laid off their workers as soon as the epidemic hit, but they have platforms to tell their story and explain their story, and they're being seen as saviors. Let me tell you, if y'all know your history, then you all will see how this gets played out over and over and over again. But I got news for y'all. And this is the story that, Therese, I really want us to get into talk about. That Black folks have the infrastructure. We have the leadership. We have the models. And we don't have to look to them to try to lead us out of this. As a matter of fact, they don't have the solutions at all. And I'm here to make that argument that we are what we need in order to reshape and transform the food industry. I'm going to stop right there.
No, you first, because this is exactly what we need right now. I'm wondering, because we talked about this so much over the years, and it's one of those things where you look at the world having to stop, like being forced to stop, and so many people having this moment of like epiphany or clarity, which is brilliant, but that clarity really only matters if it's put into practice once we get through this moment, right? And I feel like there's this piece missing about how we recalibrate our priorities, because again, like, this is we are people losing their mind because the weather broke and they can't go outside. We I don't know that we built for. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but we got to be built for. We got to be ready to make some kind of sacrifice in a way that is gonna actually rebuild. Because I feel like the work we do on a daily basis with Food Lab is literally doing that work, and it doesn't look. You're able to do the work you do because you readjust what a win looks like, what sovereignty looks like. And I'm unsure that people really are feeling the fact that we're going to have a dramatic shift in where we place our priorities to make any of this happen.
That's right. And I love that you said this. I love that you talk about where we place our priorities, right? Because our priorities have a lot to do with, what we hold in our heart, our thinking, what's important to us. And, one of the people who I follow, who I love, who I read her writing, these are the times, I just want to say this, these are the times in which we'll start talking about, are we built for this? Where our priorities are? How do we readjust? These are the times that we need to, instead of worrying about, oh, the weather is nice and I need to go, to the park or to the beach. Like, I get that, I understand that. But these are also times when we need to develop kind of like systems. These are also times when we need to develop practices. And we also need to be reading, and we also need to be taking in some of the thoughts, some of the writings of some of our brightest kind of food writers at this particular point.
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is that, I spend a lot of time reading. A lot. I love to read. And there's just some brilliant some brilliant writers who help me to reshape and to refocus. Let me tell you something. If you're not reading Alicia Kennedy, if you're not reading Tunde Way, if you're not reading Saleho, if you're not reading Sybil Eats, if you're not reading The Counter, if you're not leaving Whetstone, if you're not following Stephen Satterfield, what are you doing?
Right.
You ain't ready for this moment. You're not ready. In order to be built for this, Therese, what I'm saying is that you think about it. You need to be strong, right? Right? You're talking about you need to be built for something, right? And so when we think about being built for something in the physical sense, that means I got to get myself together, right? I got to work out. I got to eat right. I got to make sure that I'm doing all of these things, because being built right is being about consistency. You're not going to get on a treadmill or start running tomorrow and then all of a sudden lose 50 pounds. You don't think just because you gave up carbs for 2 days, all of a sudden you're going to be beach ready. No, your body's not going to be ready. The consistency is the key. And so if we want to be built for this moment, we have to be getting ourselves ready physically and mentally. Me and my brother Howard Conyers talk about this all the time. I'm running now because I need to be built for the resiliency and the restoration. And I need to be built for the long. I got to get my body ready. I can't be running this race on weak knees. I'm too old. Okay? And I got to get my mind right. And how I get my mind right is that I gotta be able to mentally read the thinkings of people who are much more smarter and brilliant than I am. And so we gotta get ourselves ready to race for this. This is the long haul, right? And so these are some of the ways that I ready myself, how I'm building myself when we get through this.
So some folks were asking about some of the names we mentioned, like
yeah.
I'll make sure that after this we post a link of all of the brilliant.
If you not, let me tell you something. Mainstream media and the New York Times right now is an embarrassment. I can't even deal with the New York Times. I cannot deal with the New York Times right now. I don't know what happened. I can't. And I can't even listen to the Daily. But I'm gonna tell you something. If you're not reading, girl, let me tell you something. Somebody wrote on Twitter. I can't even take something. Some people wrote on Twitter like, "Oh my God, I wish." And listen, we love Jonathan Gold, listen, we love Bourdain, we love them. Somebody wrote like, "Oh, I'm so sad that Jonathan and Anthony aren't here during these times, because if they were, we will be hearing so much more from immigrants of color and people of color." Hello? Do you not read the San Francisco Chronicle? Do you not read the LA Times Food Section? Saleho and Patrice, are you not reading Monica Burton and Eda? Are you not reading Angela Burks and Eda? Like, what are you all doing? Like, we have people on the ground that are covering these communities. Did you not read Brittany Houston and Hudson and Sybil Eats? What are you talking about? We got brilliant minds out here, folks of color, who are writing amazing. Did you not read Omar's piece? Thank you, Jeff, for giving him a platform at Esquire. Did you not read that? So anyway, so those are some of the things. And make sure. Oh, I see Clay. Clay is letting the people know about resources that they should definitely be reading and checking out.
And so I guess to your point about really sort of getting ready, or sort of thinking more broadly about how we build a new food system, it's a job that felt, I remember as we were all in New Orleans for Radical Exchange. Radical Exchange's Resistance served in February. I'm telling you,
Shout out to Ashton.
Yes,
Ashton's IG stories. If you're not tuning in to Ashton's IG stories, you're not getting your full life. Like that girl is giving me. I'm so proud of her. Somebody talked about Portia Wilson and Hungry Society. Of course, love Portia. But yeah, so we was just out in New Orleans in what was that, February? It seemed like almost. Oh God, it seemed like so long ago, right?
Right. And so we haven't. I mean, I remember similar before we knew what this was going to be. Before the world stopped, there was this feeling about this conversation about how we dismantle systems that just don't work for us. And this moment sort of is showing us that, but it never worked for us. It was never equitable. And so the beauty of this moment, I think, is that we get the opportunity, the gift, to be forced to recalibrate. And I'm wondering what that's looking like for Food Lab. I mean, you have entrepreneurs who were already sort of operating in sort of, I mean, y'all were already gangster. Y'all were already using resources in ways that were innovative and outside the box. But in this moment, with literally the world stopped, how do you recalibrate? How do you regroup? And what does that look like for your folks?
Yeah. And so, and I want to answer that question when we talk about recalibrating and give a little bit of context on why we need to recalibrate. And I was on a podcast. I was on a treadmill this morning, listening for the third time. This is how good this was. Listening for the third time, the podcast that my brother Tunde Way was on at Serious Eats. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, whew. And it was a follow-up to this 10-part IG post that Tunde wrote that was called "Let the Restaurant Industry Fail." Let it fail. Or the restaurant industry, don't bail it out. Like it doesn't, don't bail it out, right? And so when we start talking about recalibrating, we have to understand, to your point, Trace, that this system was never meant for us. And the reality is that even the way that mainstream media is even talking about saving the restaurant industry is still not meant for us. Like, I need for folks to really understand, because people are having the wrong conversation. They're having the wrong conversation and they're not talking about the right things. People are so wrapped up in the emotional romance of the restaurant industry. So when you see all of these campaigns that are being led by some of y'all faves, right? And some of these lobbying groups, and they're talking about, oh, save the restaurant industry. And you all see some of these GIFs and some of these JPEGs and memes with the little heart around them. Save the restaurant industry. My question is, what are we saving? And are we having the right conversation? And who's leading those conversations? Right? And so there was something that was so brilliant and so poignant that Tunde mentioned in this podcast. And he was just kind of like, we need to be having conversations really about access and privilege within the context of what it means to save a restaurant industry, right? And what I mean by that is that even these loan programs that are being set up, whether it's the loan program that's called the PPP, which is the Payroll Protection Program, whether it's the loan program that's called the EIDL, all of these programs were created in service of ownership. The PPP program, and the statistics are starting to come out, is that 95% of entrepreneurs of color who own restaurants and small businesses will be locked out of and will not have access to the PPP program. But even with the context of the PPP program is like, let us save owners. And what I mean by that is that let the owner, not the worker, let the owner file for payroll protection or EIDL. See, that's access to money. Who has access? Owners have access. And so let's put the onus on the owners to hire back their employees. So owners have access to PPP, They have access to EIDL or any other kind of tool or strategy or instrument that they can find to put funds back into their business for the sake of ownership. But workers, they have access to, if they could get through, unemployment. That's it. And so really think about this. Owners have access to loans and instruments and grants that will allow them to continue to build wealth, because it will continue to save and subsidize their businesses. Workers have access to unemployment, but does nothing to allow them to continue to consume. We want you to have access to unemployment so you can continue to pay your rent. You can pay your bills. You can go buy groceries. None of that, though, is going toward the wealth of workers. So when Tunde says, let it fail, he's asking, do we really need restaurants? No, we really don't. So when you start talking about retooling, Sheree, when you start talking about what the new systems look like, what does the new industry look like, what does the new food system look like, you have to ask yourself, do we really need restaurants? And the answer to that question is no, we really don't. We really don't. Listen, we have romanticized restaurants and we've confused it. We're having the wrong conversation. So there's something beautiful, Sheree, about hands touching our food. There's something beautiful about farmers who are growing, who are cultivating, who are harvesting our ingredients. There's something beautiful when I see my mother and my aunts and even myself sometimes snap peas or shuck corn. There's something beautiful about the rolling out of biscuit dough. But let's not confuse that. That's not the business of restaurants. Romanticizing cooking and feeding and caring for people is not the business of restaurants. It's not. So do people need restaurants? No. Do people need to eat? Yes. Do people need jobs where they can take care of their families? And we would like to have a job, please, where we can only work 35 or maybe 40 hours a week and not work 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 jobs to take care of our families. Do people need access to health care? Yes. Do people need access to quality care? Yes, they do. Here's the question. It would be great that within the framework and within a business model that restaurants provided that to people. But guess what? It doesn't. This whole entire industry is built on the backs of our most vulnerable workers who don't have access to affordable health care, who don't have living wage jobs to take care of their family. Many of them are working 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 jobs. They do not have it. So what really is the purpose of a restaurant? Again, I go back to you cannot untie a restaurant with real estate. So you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose? And so we've been having these conversations at Food Lab for a very long time in terms of what does a business model in which we are able to do what we love, serve people who we love and care about. What does that look like outside of the brick and mortar framework of a business model that is built upon these exploitive, oppressive, what they call best practices of a restaurant? Like, what does that look like? And so these are the conversations that we're starting to have. Yep. And I do believe that the solutions they lie in our recipes. You and I, Trace, talked about this all the time. Like, there's a such thing as soul food that came out of struggle. Like, the solutions lie in our kitchens. The solutions lie in our cooking, but the solutions are not based upon what we're hearing about, what we're reading about, that's being proposed from the government or this administration, right? And so, so these are the conversations that we're having.
And I think it's hard sometimes because a comment a little while ago was saying like our conversation felt coded. And yeah, there's a very particular conversation that's happening in food spaces, in restaurant spaces, like in the food world. And I think sometimes and one of the main reasons I was a yes when Clay asked me to do these talks was because I wanted there to be a broader conversation about what our industry looks like to folks outside of it. The consumer who just sees the brick and mortar, just sees the brunch, boozy brunch, just sees the sort of the mechanism of celebration, that like the function of a restaurant as a right, like a social, it's this sort of social imperative not understanding that they're contributing in a lot of ways, and we all sort of contributing this like really toxic ballet that really isn't serving anybody. And so I'm wondering, because I wonder what you would say to people who don't understand. You were so articulate about it, and you said it, but just please, what does it take? You talk to restaurateurs all the time. You're dealing with especially food purveyors, restaurateurs, you know, across disciplines in your business and in your nonprofit. You see what it really takes
That's
to
right.
open your doors every day, to invite guests in, to provide this social imperative. But what does that look like? Because I don't think they really appreciate what it takes to open your doors. Because
Yeah.
like you said, the artistry, the beauty part, the ability to sort of, I'm a chef first. I do this work
Mm.
because I wanted to come to this industry because it was something I could do artistically every day that I could earn my living from, that I could express myself, that I could, and those are all wonderful things. And those things that are personal but have nothing to do with what the guest receives. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because
Yeah.
you see behind the scenes what it really takes to get up every day and to sort of provide this social service. But it's like you said, we're talking about two different things.
That's right. Yeah. It is two different things. And here's the thing. I think that I love that you said that this is this toxic dance, right? And that is that I know so many Black restaurateurs. You and I both know them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their family, you know, they're a part of our ecosystem. Who still,
Say it.
Omar articulated it best in his piece. Who still long for? They do. Who still look and want and desire the affirmation, the accolade from white-led organizations. Trust and believe, right? And so, and you'll see that, and y'all all will see it as soon as we get off this Instagram live, right? You'll see as the Beard Foundation announces their winners. You will see that there's still this longing, right, for this approval and affirmation and celebration of their work. Not that they don't deserve it. I'm not trying to say that they don't.
Yep.
They do. But that is but here's the thing. That within itself should not be the goal.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. It can't be the goal. And so, you know, as I, you know, read in MSM, we call mainstream media, about, you know, some of these in celebrity chefs, or, you know, that have the platform, that have the space, that are talking about, you know, that are advocating for the saving of their restaurants. Girl, let me tell you something. I'm thinking about the Black entrepreneurs and chefs and food business owners that I work with in Detroit, Michigan, and now have the opportunity to work with on the south side of Chicago. Let me tell you something. Who were able to pivot to a business model where they are offering takeout, carry out, delivery, and are still operating their business and has not had to close their doors. And they do that. And Solejo wrote this amazing kind of article in the San Francisco Chronicle recently that talked about this moral dilemma. Moral dilemma is what I have to wrestle with as I talk with Black-owned restaurateurs and Black chefs here in Detroit and in Chicago. It's this moral dilemma, and that dilemma is, Devita, like I don't have a privilege to just be like, you know what? I'm gonna close my doors and then I'm gonna hope that I'm gonna get access to an EIDL loan. I'm going to hope I'm going to get access to PPP. I'm going to hope that my workers are going to be able to get through to the Secretary of State office and file through unemployment. We got Black businesses, and Brittany wrote about one on in Detroit called Soul Cafe, and Jerome and Samuel are like, nah, like if we close, there will be no healthy food option in our community, and our residents will then go to fast food. No, we gotta stay open. We gotta stay open with these, and we gotta make sure our people are built for this. We gotta be open with the baked chicken and the collard greens and the lima beans and the cornbread and the cabbage. We have to stay open. But then it's moral dilemma that if we stay open, we also understand that we are essential workers and we are putting ourselves on the front line. We're talking about in a city that disproportionately has affected Black folks in terms of death with the coronavirus. We only make up 14% of the state, but we make up over 40% of the deaths. Do you understand that the moral dilemma is tugging at the hearts and the minds of Black restaurateurs that are on the south side of Chicago and saying, no, we got to stay open because we want these young men and these young women who we employ to have some place to go to work because we don't want to lose them to the streets. We got to stay open. We got to stay open because we just got a contract or a grant came through that we can keep our employees working if we feed the vulnerable elder seniors in our community, if we feed frontline workers. And so here's the thing. We already know about how capital stacks. And when I talk about the capital stack, I'm talking about how people raise money to open up some of these restaurants. We need to be honest about that first and foremost. So when y'all are, loving up on these restaurants, even some of our faves, right? They opening up restaurants and, in hotels and, they're opening up restaurants downtown or, they're part of these big developments. The first question we should be asking ourselves is like, oh, how'd you raise the money to open up this? Like, where did your investment capital come from? How'd this happen? What is it? So, but I deal with people who are in the neighborhoods, and the way that they opened up their restaurants is through credit cards, through their own personal savings, asking mama and grandma and uncles and brothers and cousins, trying to, and they might get their hands on a couple of dollars from a grant. But you have to understand that many of these restaurants not only showed in the burden of making sure that they are running a sustainable business where they're able to feed themselves and their families and their communities and their staff, but they also are obligated to the people who helped them start these restaurants in the first place. I lose my restaurant, my mama may lose her house. Do you understand that? She took out a loan against her house in order to give me the money that I needed to start my restaurant. And so the way that money flows in our community and the way to start a restaurant are very, very different from somebody like a David Chang who thought that he could tiptoe into Portland and start a new kind of restaurant that's called Food off the backs of his technology investment money, leveraging ghost kitchens. That'll happen, with us in the neighborhood. So, it's just really, really funny, how some folks are given voice and some folks are being seen as leaders, and we have to ask ourselves why. When we have Black people who I truly believe are really should be the voices that we hear in terms of where the solutions are going to come from, in terms of making it out of here, this situation, and also rebuilding a new food system.
I'm wondering too, because you made a really excellent point. I think sometimes we, again, I don't want to belabor it, but in a lot of ways, we don't show the work. We don't, there's not a transparency in what this mechanism really takes to operate. And so when we say, because it becomes, some of these sentiments become trite, right? Like this, support Black business, and it becomes this very it's absolutely it's a life ethos, but I think it's very easy when we get sort of caught up in a lot of unnecessary foolishness, right? Like in the mechanism of distraction to just it's easy to just forget that idea about supporting us is not just about blindly supporting Black folks. It's about supported folks who surmounted every obstacle, tripped over, just done 2 times the work to have that same brick and mortar space that you're going to come and have your special occasion. You're going to, this space that's there for you, that's waiting for you to come and patronize. To keep your doors open with the hope that somebody's going to come is that enterprise for people of color is disproportionately flawed, right? And so I wonder what showing work looks like. I wonder how we sort of contextualize what is really taking for these businesses to open, what real parity and equity looks like for restaurateurs that are gonna weather this. Because that's the other part that we forget sometimes. Like it's more than we've been here before. We do this every day with far less resources, and we built for getting through and over insane disparity. So I honestly feel like our businesses, for the most part, are gonna weather. We're gonna be able to pivot and get through this because we've been, we've been here before.
That's right.
But I wonder how we, as practitioners, as food professionals, how we show our work in a way that translates to the public, right? And not in a, because again, like I'm not opening my books to my guests, and I don't want there to be this feeling that like it's not this, it's not charity, but the brilliance that is in our community, the resilience in our folks who are trying to be part of this industry and provide you all with the best social parts of your life. We gotta have more transparency about what that really is taking for them. So I wonder what you think that looks like, how we translate that to folks.
So so I have a couple thoughts about that. In that, I want to start off again with context, with facts. That's why I love being in conversation with Black women, because we always come with like facts and receipts and white papers and documents, because we don't be like, and it's a shame that I shouldn't say it's a shame that we have to do that, but that's just how we built, like, right? And yes, Clancy, Trace is one of the best moderators ever, and she asks some of the best questions, and she sets things up for me so that I can, hey Angela, so I can just knock it out the park. So she is excellent at doing this. And so I love that she asked the question, what does this look like? And so I know Clay's on the line. So Clay, I want Clay's listening in, and I want Clay to provide this as a reference. And so I can't think of the name of the article like verbatim, but his name is Andre Perry. And Andre Perry, who works works with the Brookings Institute, just did this amazing article that talked about 5-star reviews or 1-star rating. Basically, him and his team, when you talk about what this looks like, him and his team did a deep dive analysis using race as a lens of analysis of analyzing Yelp reviews. So when you talk about Trace, what does this look like and what we can do to support Black businesses? Here's the fact. The fact of the matter is that you can feel however you want to feel about the opportunity for people now to crowdsource reviews. I know some restaurateurs who cannot stand Yelp. And I'm one of the people who I don't really like Yelp either, because again, when you put this crowdsourcing tool in the hands of consumers, some people can be really, really nasty. So I don't particularly, me, Devita, personally, I don't particularly like Yelp. However, Yelp is extremely powerful. Andre and his team did an analysis of Yelp that basically said that, number one, when you have positive Yelp stars on your profile, that translates into bringing in between 20 to 30% more revenue. Of course, this is the way it's set up. Unless you are a Black-owned business. Unless you are a Black-owned business, because they said regardless of how many stars you have as a Black-owned business, that if you are a Black-owned business located in a Black neighborhood, even if you have 4 stars, you still generate less money than a white-owned business in a white neighborhood who has 2 stars. That tells you about how people feel about our communities and neighborhoods. It's almost like, Therese, they can go to a Black restaurant in a Black neighborhood, and just by it being Black in a Black neighborhood, they feel that it is less than if that business was located in a white community. Like, where does that mindset come from? That you think just because this neighborhood is Black owned in a Black business, in a Black neighborhood, then automatically your mind goes to think that it's not as good as a restaurant that's located in a non-Black community. Think about that for a second. And so he was able to parse this out through Yelp reviews. And so we have to play something else. We got 10 minutes. So we have to really think about how we are looking at our own businesses. Let me tell you something. I don't give a damn if the restaurant ain't all of that. I'm going to go to Yelp and give it 5 stars now that I know there's a whole algorithm that's set up that can translate into Black owned businesses making more money. He should have never told me that. I would go to all Black businesses and start 5 damn.
Right.
You put an algorithm out there. Let me go ahead and just use the algorithm then, okay? And so he was able to do that. So we have to ask ourselves our mentality about what our restaurants kind of look like. And here's the thing, then I'm going to end with this, is that people need to also understand when you are supporting Black-owned businesses, those dollars circulate in our community, right? And so we have to ask ourselves how fast dollars leave our neighborhood, right? And so when you support Black businesses in Black neighborhoods, you are circulating that dollar in our community. And not only are you circulating the dollar in the community, you are also supporting an ecosystem that is much larger than that restaurant. Oh my God, I can see so clearly what this could look like. Could you imagine a cooperative that is Black owned, that has investors, or is worker owned, a restaurant that is worker owned or cooperatively owned in a Black neighborhood, who are locally sourcing their ingredients from Black farmers, who are hiring Black workers? The art on the wall is Black artists. The man or the woman or the firm that actually built the cooperative restaurant was a Black architecture or a Black designer. Hello, lights. Could you imagine that the contract for who's composting the garbage and who's picking up the waste is actually a Black-owned business? Could you imagine that? And then wrapped up in all of that, we are all, because the resources are here. And then after all of that, we have this tight collaborative between Black chefs and Black restaurant owners, and we're all working with the HEAL Alliance, to help us build political power and political voice and actually advocate for what we need. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about, we already have the people and the places and the organization in place? We already got bugs in place. We got Detroit Black food security in place. We got People's Kitchen out in Oakland already in place. We got Just Foods in New York that's already in place. Can we talk about, we already got Ashton down in New Orleans and Howard in New Orleans is already in place. We got Leanne in New Jersey. She's already in place. Can we all, girl, stop.
And if, I mean, honestly, Devita, this time at home, just thinking and writing is really, it's got me clear on the fact that we can imagine, we all can imagine that reality, but do we have the will, and are we willing to sacrifice to make that happen? And I feel like if there's any time that would be possible, any time that you know, there's a clean slate to be had, there's a breath to be taken, this is kind of it. And I'm cautiously hopeful and optimistic, but I know it's more than optimism, it's changing how you move in the world. Like, it's all these small things, these small ways we can all just pivot. It's not going to be, I mean, was it no lasting systemic change is immediate or fast moving? So yeah, I'm in this. This forever work for me.
Yes, it is.
Forever work for most of us. It should be slow, steady, methodical, piece by piece, shifting of and recalibrating of priority. I see it happening. I mean, I do too.
I see it too. And I know, and the thing is, but we got to have the will, we've got to have the mindset, and we have to have the sacrifice. And I don't know how many minutes that we have left, but listen, I'm here in Michigan, right? And right now, in Michigan, we're focusing on the wrong shit. We're talking and spending way too much airtime, spending time with these white militia groups and these white terrorists that are storming our state capitals, carrying guns to the state capitol, right? And then folks have the audacity because they don't know their history, and people want to compare it to when the Black Panther Party, right, brought guns to the Capitol in California. Here, there's no comparison. And when people don't know their history, they don't understand the fact of why the Black Panther Party did what they did, and the fact of the matter that immediately thereafter, there was something that was called the Mumford Law that at that time Governor Reagan put into act. But people don't understand as problematic as the Black Panther Party were. They were. But the fact of the matter is they actually moved this country to create a free breakfast program for children in the schools. They were feeding these babies in the 60s and 70s long before the government did. You understand? We have the solutions in our community that we can activate now and force the government to adapt solutions that we come up with. And I see that in what we call mutual aid and solidarity. And that's why I mentioned the people that we have all over the country, because God, if we come together and really come together, and the thing is, people are afraid. Because they haven't really seen that type of unity before in the food industry, in the food and farming industry, and they're scared because they don't know what the outcome is. But I am here to tell you that if we come together, we got everything that we need. We don't have to operate from a place of deficit. We have so much abundance, so much brilliancy, and so much radicalism, and so much revolutionary spirit in our community that if we come together, we will be a force that can transform this industry. But we got to believe that we can do it first.
Yeah.
We can be unafraid.
So, Devita, we're going to be so close to the end. This limit of an hour is so tricky with somebody as brilliant as you, but I feel like if people are really interested in the work you're doing at Food Lab Detroit, many of the folks we mentioned, like Ashton Berry and New Orleans, just all these, some of the folks that you mentioned, we may put a list together of organizations that you can support, because those are tangible, sort of specific spaces that you can start from. But honestly, like, the information is out there, folks. Like, Devita exists in the world. Her TED Talks are available. She exists to reach out to directly. Black Food Folks is an awesome.
Oh, Black Food Folks is transformative. Oh, Black Food Folks. Oh, thank you, Clay. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you for everybody on the call supporting. Thank you, Nicole Taylor, for being a light and for being the inspiration and for doing this work to transform kind of media for Black folks to have a space for us to share our stories long before, you know, some of these other kind of media organizations have popped up. So,
but I want to thank you so much, and I hope people actually are interested enough to reach out and research, because I mean, we've been out here, we've been, you know, this work continues, it's going to continue. We got no choice but to. But I just, I'm so thankful for you. Next week I'm gonna be talking to Karen Washington, so I'm excited about that too. Yes, and if y'all are interested, again, I'll be here Mondays at 11 a.m. for the foreseeable future, at least the next 5 weeks. Later on today, I think 1 o'clock is Aaron Hutchinson with El Scott, and later on after that. Oh my
God! Do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself?
Because we out here. I mean,
do you hear yourself?
It's gonna be good.
Oh my God! No, I'm excited. Thank y'all so much.
And thank
Love
you
so much. Okay.
Yeah.
See y'all later. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.